All right, sorry about that. My phone died in the middle of that video. But moving on to the next problem. So the next one we're gonna do is 560 divided by 4. So we're gonna go ahead and skip count on the side as well. So you don't pause it yet. We're gonna skip count on the side, then you can write it down. So let's skip count together. So it's 4, 8, 12, 16, 20, 24, 28, 32, 36, 40. So go ahead and skip count on the side as well. Pause your screen so you can get the question and then solve on your own, and then we'll check it together. All right, so now that you're back, we're gonna check together. So remember, our first step of division is to divide. So 5 divided by 4. So what times 4 gets you closest to 5 without going over, which is 1. So I'm gonna put a 1 on the top. Then I'm gonna do 4 times 1, which is 4. Okay, then now I'm going to subtract. So I'm gonna subtract 5 minus 4, which is 1. Then I'm going to bring down the 6. So I'm gonna bring down my 6. And I need to think about what times 4 is gonna get me closest to 16 without going over. So I know that 4 times 4 is 16. So my 4 is gonna go on the top. 4 times 4, so I'm multiplying my 4, times the 4 I just wrote down, which is 16. And it's going to be 16 minus 16, which is 0. So this is a tricky one because we're going to end up with a 0 and something to bring down. So remember, after subtract is brother, bring down. So you have to bring down any number that's on top that's left there. So since it's a 0, you still have to bring it down. So I'm going to bring down my 0. And so now I need to think about what times 4 is going to get me closest to 0 without going over. So I can't do 1 because 4 is over that. So I'm going to do 0. So I'm going to put my 0 at the top, like that. Yeah, I put it right there. So then now I multiply. 0 times 4 is 0. And then 0 minus 0 is 0. There's nothing else to bring down now. And we know that 0 is smaller than 4. So now Rover becomes remainder. So our remainder would be 0. So now to check our work, we're going to take 140 times, I'm just doing it down here, 140 times 4. So we know that 4 times 0 is 0. 4 times 4 is 16. Carry my 1. 4 times 1 is 4, plus 1 is 5. So if I got the same answer that I started with, 560, 560, so that means I'm right. So good job. If you got that one right, virtual high five. Moving on to the next one. So the next one is going to be divided by 6. So I need to know my 6's. If I don't, I can skip count on the side, so we're going to do that together. But before we do that, it's going to be 193 divided by 6, like that. Okay, so let's go ahead and skip count by 6 together. So 6, 12, 18, 24, 30, 36, 42, 48, 54, 60. So remember, that's just to help me if I don't know my multiplication facts so that I can look through and see which one is going to get me closest to that number. So the first step, oh wait, pause. I almost just gave you the answer. You have to try it on your own first. So pause and solve. All right, so now we're going to solve it together. Oh my goodness, I almost gave you the answer. That would have been craziness. Okay, so what times 6 gets you closest to 1 without going over? So that's the same thing that we did on the last one where it's going to be 0. Now, you can write the 0 on top and then multiply it out and get 0 and subtract. So that would look like this. 6 times 0 is 0. But you're going to end up with the same thing. You're going to end up with that 19. See how that's the same there? So what I like to do is I like to save that extra step so I don't have to do as much work. And I like to just divide from the start. So I take 19 divided by 6. So what times 6 gets you closest to 19 without going over? So I know that 6 times 3 is 18. Now if I didn't know that, again, you can just look and then count 1, 2, 3. Okay, so 6 times 3 is 18. So that's gonna get me the closest without going over. So my 3 goes on top. 6 times 3 is 18. Now, notice where I put that 3. I didn't put it over my hundreds place because I already went over to my tens place. So I put it just directly above my tens place because that's what place value now I'm working in. I'm working with the 19 rather than the 1. Okay, so I put it over the 9. So 19 minus 18 is 1. And then I'm going to bring down the 3. So now I'm going to take what times 6 gets you closest to 13 without going over. I know that 6 times 2 is 12, so that's going to get you the closest. So 6 times 2, write 2 on the top. 6 times 2 is 12, goes underneath there. So now sisters, subtract 13 minus 12 is 1. Now there's nothing else to bring down, right? There's nothing here. The 1 is smaller than the 6, so that means that this 1 becomes your remainder. So you should have gotten 32, remainder 1. Now, so to check our work, remember we take our answer, 32, times 6, because it's the opposite. Division is the opposite of multiplication, so we're able to check it that way. So 32 times 6. 6 times 2 is 12. 6 times 3 is 18, plus 1 is 19. And again, I'm at 192 instead of 193s, but I didn't add in my remainder. So I added my remainder, and I should get 193, which is the number that we started with. Okay? So that was 3. 2 more. We can do this. Hopefully we're doing okay so far. If you're like, Ms. McCarthy, this feels like a foreign language to me, like I've never heard of this before, reach out and I can send you some extra videos or some extra things to work on. But the next one, back to our 5s. So we all love when it's our 5. So it's gonna be 656 divided by 5. So remember, let's count on the side by 5s. 5, 10, 15, 20, 25, 30, 35, 40, 45, 50. Just in case I don't know my multiplication facts. If you know your multiplication facts like this, you don't have to write this down. You already know them in your head. But just in case you don't, they're on the side just for a little help. So now I'm gonna do what times 5 gets me closest to 6 without going over. So I know that's gonna be, I forgot to tell you to pause again. Okay, it's pause and solve. Oh my gosh, I'm losing my brain. Pause and solve. All right, so now that you're back, we're going to solve it together. So 5, what times 5 gets me closest to 6 without going over? And it's gonna be 1. So my 1 is gonna go on top, like that. And then I'm gonna multiply. 1 times 5 is 5. So then now I have 6 minus 5 is 1. Then bring down your 5. And we get 15. So now I just think out, well, what times 5 gets me closest to 15 without going over? And I know that 5 times 3 is 15. 15. So I wrote my 3 on the top. I multiplied it by 5. I got 15. Now I can subtract. 15 minus 15 is 0. But then I have the 6 to bring down. So I'm going to bring down my 6, like so. And then now Rover, repeat. Because 6, I brought something down, so I have to repeat. I can't just leave 6 out there. And 6 is bigger than 5, so I can't leave that. Okay, so what times 5 gets you closest to 6 without going over? We've already done that one, so it's 1. And 5 times 1 is 5. 6 minus 5 is 1. Now, is there anything else to bring down? No. 1 is smaller than 5, so this 1 becomes my remainder. So I get 131, remainder 1, like so. So now to check my work, I'm going to take my answer, 131, times my 5. 131 times 5. 5 times 1 is 5. 5 times 3 is 15. Carry my 1. 5 times 1 is 5. Plus 1 is 6. And then I add in my extra remainder. So I get 6, 5, So 656, and that is what we started with. So we're good. All right, you got one more, so bear with me. These take a little bit longer than the multiplication and comparing and things. But we're on our last one, and we're going to do, let's do 424 divided by 4. So we're going to skip count together again. So it's 4, 8, 12, 16, 20, 24, 28, 32, 36, 40. So remember, if you know your multiplication facts, you don't have to do that. So parents, the reason why I do that is just so that when they're working through it, they don't miss the problem because they don't know their multiplication facts. So I encourage them to skip count on the side just to make sure that we're not making like simple little mistakes here and there. So go ahead and pause. Didn't forget this time. So pause and solve. All right, so now that you're back with me, we're going to go ahead and solve. So 4, what times 4 gets you closest to 4 without going over? So I know that's going to be 1. So 4 times 1 is 4. So this is going to be a 4. Now I'm going to subtract. 4 minus 4 is 0. And I have to bring down my 2. What times 4 gets you closest to 2 without going over? That's going to be 0, right? So the 0 goes at the top. I can't believe I have a marker all over me. That's okay. 4 times 0 is 0. And then I'm going to take 2 minus 0, which is 2. And then I'm going to bring down my 4. So now I have 24 divided by 4. So you have to think about what times 4 gets you closest to 24. So I know that it's going to be 6, but just to make sure, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And that's how I use the skip counting, so I see that it's 24. Okay, so the 6 goes on top. 6 times 4 is 24. 24 minus 24 is 0. There's nothing else to bring down. 0 is smaller than 4, so I'm good to go. Good to leave it like this. My remainder would be 0. So now I'm going to multiply to make sure I'm correct. So 106 times 4. 6 times 4 is 24. 4 times 0 is 0, plus 2 is 2. And then 4 times 1 is 4. So I got 424, so I know I'm correct. All right, so that is your division lesson for the day. It is Friday, which means you have 2 days without any awesome math lessons. So I'll see you again on Monday for our next lesson. All right, enjoy your weekend.